August 27, 1942, Caribbean Sea. Allied convoy Tau 15 was sailing south of Haiti. At 6:30 a.m., the Dutch tanker Rotterdam was struck by a torpedo on her starboard side. At the same moment, two more ships were rocked by powerful underwater explosions: the American tanker SO Aruba and the British tanker St. Fabian. The British and Dutch ships immediately began to sink and quickly disappeared beneath the waves, their crews being rescued by the convoy's destroyers. The American tanker was luckier. The torpedo struck the ship's port bow. Its steam engines and cargo were undamaged, and the crew was able to steer their tanker ashore and run it aground, allowing for repairs. Destroyers began searching for the submarine, but to no avail, and the convoy continued on to its final destination. That convoy was attacked by the German submarine U-511, commanded by Friedrich Steinhoff, on the submarine's maiden combat mission. Steinhoff fired only 4 torpedoes during the attack, resulting in 2 ships sunk and 1 damaged. The German submarine U-511 had a curious history. It was involved in the formation of a special group called Monsoon, which operated in the Indian Ocean, was used for experimental underwater rocket launches, and was later transferred to Japan, serving in the Empire Japanese Navy until the end of World War II. We'll discuss this and many other aspects of this submarine's history in this video. U-511 is a German Type 9C submarine. The Germans built 194 Type 9 submarines, including all their variants. Development of Type 9 submarines began in 1935. Engineers were tasked with creating a large ocean-going submarine capable of operating off the coast of the United States and in the Indian Ocean. Submarines of this class had a more spacious and comfortable hull for the crew, which also allowed for increased armament. The first basic modification of the Type 9A submarine had a hull length of 76 meters (249 feet) and a width of 6 meters (19 feet) with a surface displacement of 1,032 tons. The engine room was equipped with 2 MAN diesel engines with a capacity of 2,200 horsepower each, as well as 2 electric motors with a capacity of 500 horsepower each. The speed above water was 18 knots, underwater 7 knots, and a cruising range of 10,500 nautical miles. The crew consisted of 48 submariners. Armament: 6 torpedo tubes of 53.3 cm or 21 inches caliber, 4 in the bow and 2 in the stern. The submarine's spacious hull allowed for the total torpedo load of 22 torpedoes. 6 torpedoes were stored in their launch tubes, another 6 were inside the hull, and another 10 were stored in special containers under the upper deck. Artillery included one 10.5 cm deck gun, one 3.7 cm anti-aircraft gun, and one 2 cm anti-aircraft gun. The submarines could be used as underwater mine layers. Their hulls could carry 44 TMA mines or 60 TMB mines, which were loaded into the torpedo tubes and expelled by compressed air. Overall, the submarines were very seaworthy. However, their large hulls increased their diving time to 35 seconds, compared to 30 seconds for Type 7 submarines. The U-511 variant, the Type 9C, differed slightly from the base model. Its hull was slightly longer, and the fuel capacity was increased, increasing its range to 13,450 nautical miles. Construction of the U-511 began in Hamburg in February 1941, and it was launched on September 22, 1941. Friedrich Steinhoff was appointed its first commander. In May 1942, the submarine was located at a special research center in Peenemünde. The submarine was used to test the underwater launch of Wurfkörper 42 rockets. 6 rockets were mounted on a special frame attached to the aft deck. The submarine dived to a depth of 12 meters (39 feet) and launched. The missiles emerged from the water, scattered in all directions, and fell back into the water. But the experiment was still considered a success, as German engineers wanted to prove that launching missiles from underwater was actually possible. This was part of a program to develop a submarine capable of carrying a V-2 missile in a special towed container to the US coast. This project was ultimately abandoned, but U-511 still participated in this interesting and secret experiment. Subsequently, the submarine was assigned to the 10th Flotilla, based in Lorient. The submarine departed for its first combat mission on July 16, 1942 from Kiel and was scheduled to return to Lorient after completing its patrol. The submarine crossed the Atlantic and entered the Caribbean Sea to sink Allied ships. German submarines had been operating off the US coast since January 1942. After sinking two tankers and damaging another, the submarine returned and arrived in Lorient on September 29. The submarine's second patrol, which lasted from October 24 to November 28, yielded no results. Upon returning to base, the submarine was assigned to a new commander, Fritz Schneewind. During her third patrol, which lasted from December 31, 1942 to March 8, 1943, the submarine sank one British freighter, the William Wilberforce. The submarine encountered the unprotected vessel at 9:42 p.m. south of the Canary Islands. After being torpedoed, the vessel quickly sank, and the surviving crew members were picked up by a Spanish vessel. Her fourth patrol was unusual. The submarine was to participate in the formation of the special submarine group Monsoon, which subsequently operated against Allied shipping primarily in the Indian Ocean. First, it's worth understanding the rationale for this group's creation. In December 1942, the Japanese proposed to the Germans that they establish U-boat bases in Malaya and the East Indies for joint operations in the Indian Ocean. The Germans initially refused, citing the difficulty of supplying the submarines. However, by the spring of 1943, it became clear that the balance of power in the Atlantic was shifting to the Allies, and the Germans reversed their initial decision. A convoy system was already in operation in the Atlantic, with escort ships closely guarding cargo ships, aircraft keeping them under water control, and engineers had developed a variety of devices and weapons, such as radar, sonar, and bomb throwers, allowing for more effective detection and destruction of U-boats. But in the Indian Ocean the situation was different. Cargo ships and tankers often sailed unescorted, and aircraft were scarce. To continue inflicting losses on the Allies, the German Naval Command decided to deploy its U-boats there one by one. The choice fell on the Type 9 U-boat, as it could carry out such a long voyage more effectively. The first submarine was U-178. On March 28, 1943, the submarine left Bordeaux for the Cape of Good Hope. While there, the submariners received a radiogram regarding their onward journey to Penang, Malaysia, where the submarine arrived on August 27, 1943. Upon arrival, U-178 commander Wilhelm Gomez began establishing a base and organizing supplies. He would later become commander of the entire group. The name Monsoon arose when it became clear that the group needed to be assembled before the onset of the autumn monsoons. The second submarine was U-511. On May 10, 1943, the submarine departed Lorient, carrying several engineers, Japanese attaché Admiral Naokuni Nomura, and German ambassador Ernst Wermann. Some sources also report that the submarine carried secret plans for German jet aircraft. The submarine followed the same route, and during this special combat mission, it sank two ships. On June 27, 1943, it sank the ship Sebastian Sarmeno, and on July 9, the cargo ship Samuel Heinzelmann, both American ships. On July 16, 1943, the submarine arrived in Penang and transferred some supplies to the newly formed Monsoon Group. The plan then changed, and the submarine set out again, its final destination being the Japanese city of Kure, where it arrived on August 7. The submarine did not join the Monsoon Group, although this was originally planned. In Kure, the submarine was to be handed over to the Japanese fleet. The Germans decided to do this as part of a technical exchange program with Japan, in which the Japanese were to donate rubber to Germany. The official transfer was completed on September 16, 1943. A Japanese crew was assigned to the submarine, and the Germans instructed them on how to operate it. Japanese officer Taoka Kiyoshi was appointed submarine commander. The German crew returned to Penang to join work on the new base. In the Imperial Japanese Navy, the submarine was renamed Ro-500 and assigned to the training flotilla. The submarine was thoroughly studied by Japanese engineers. Among the shortcomings, the Japanese noted what they considered to be insufficient speed, but they were particularly interested in the welding method of the hull components and the quietness of its underwater movement. The experience gained from examining this German submarine was subsequently used by the Japanese in developing the E-201 class submarine design. The RO 500 remained a training submarine for the rest of its life. In September 1945, the submarine was transferred to the American Navy. On April 30, 1946, the RO 500, along with the Japanese submarines E-121 and RO 68, was towed to Wakasa Bay and scuttled by the American Navy. In June 2018, the submarine was discovered by a research team, resting at a depth of 90 meters, 295 feet. To enable German U-boats to navigate such long distances during World War II, the Germans developed a special Type 14 submarine, nicknamed the Milk Cow by submariners. It was a large transport submarine with a wide-height hull. There is a separate video about these submarines. The link is on the screen or below this video. See you soon!